My boss called me a worthless dumbass. Little did he know, he'd come to regret it. Under the bright buzzing of fluorescent lights, Emma sat at her desk, lost in thought, staring blankly at her computer screen. The office buzzed around her, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, and conversations blending into the familiar chaos of corporate life. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Her heart felt heavy, as if an unseen force was making it hard to breathe. All she could hear were his words. "You're a worthless dumbass," echoing in her mind louder than the office noise, hurting more than she thought possible. Just before, at their weekly team meeting, she had presented her hard work on a new marketing campaign. Emma was proud of her creation, even if it wasn't perfect yet. But when Mr. Harrison, her boss, interrupted her to tear apart her ideas, it shattered something inside her. His voice cut through the room, and it fell silent. "Do you even know what you're doing?" he mocked. Then came the final dagger. "Honestly, I don't know why we keep people like you around." Emma held back tears, forcing herself to finish the presentation, her hands trembling as she clicked through her slides. Once the meeting ended, she returned to her desk, feeling paralyzed as she tried to digest what had just happened. She knew Mr. Harrison was demanding. He had laid down the law from day one, making it clear that perfection was the only option. Mistakes were met with punishment, but this was different. This wasn't constructive criticism. It felt cruel, given with no empathy whatsoever. For the first time in her 2 years there, Emma questioned if she truly belonged. That evening, Emma walked home under a sunset painted in soft hues of orange and pink. Normally, she loved this time of day for its gentle beauty, but today, nothing felt soothing. Each step felt heavy, as if the world was pressing down on her. By the time she got to her small apartment, the tears she'd fought all day finally came rushing out. She sank onto her couch, holding her knees, letting it all out. It wasn't just about Mr. Harrison's words. It was everything: the long nights of hard work with no recognition, the constant pressure to prove herself, and the paralyzing fear that maybe he was right, maybe she was worthless. But as exhaustion swept in, a spark of defiance flickered to life within her. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and stood up. If Mr. Harrison wanted perfection, fine, she would give it to him. But for herself, not for his approval. For the first time in ages, Emma decided to take charge of her story. In the days that followed, she threw herself into her work, fueled by a fresh determination. Every task became a chance to show she was capable and talented. She stayed late at the office, diving deep into data and sharpening her strategies. She even sought advice from colleagues she admired, asking questions she had once felt too proud to voice. Slowly, the pieces started to come together. Then, one afternoon, while brainstorming ideas for a client pitch, a bold idea struck her: mixing storytelling with interactive media. It was a daring approach that hadn't been done before, and part of her hesitated, fearing judgment. But the new, bolder part of her encouraged her to trust herself. She presented it to her team, and to her shock, they embraced it enthusiastically. Even Sarah, the critical senior designer, nodded in approval. "This could actually work," she said, smiling for once. Fueled by that support, Emma worked tirelessly to develop the concept, focusing on every detail. For the first time in a while, she felt genuine pride in her work, not because someone else expected it, but because she truly believed in what she was doing. When the day came to pitch her idea to Mr. Harrison, Emma walked into his office confidently, transformed from the timid woman who had crumbled under his harsh remarks. As she presented, she noticed his skeptical expression shift to one of curiosity. By the end, he leaned back in his chair, studying her intensely. "Impressive," he finally said, his voice even. "I didn't expect this from you." Though his comments stung, hinting at condescension, she focused on the praise rather than the jab. He approved the project and handed her the lead role, setting her on a path toward success. As weeks went by, Emma poured herself into bringing the campaign to life. Challenges emerged, but she faced them head-on, drawing strength from her newfound resilience. Late nights turned to early mornings, with coffee as her ally. Slowly, the office dynamics began to shift. Colleagues who once overlooked her now sought her input, impressed by the creativity and dedication she showed. Even Sarah collaborated more, elevating their joint projects. Yet, there remained an unspoken tension between Emma and Mr. Harrison. Although he acknowledged her growing competence, he kept his distance. Sometimes, she caught glimmers of regret in his eyes, hints of the man he could have been, but he never directly addressed the past. Emma, however, had not forgotten nor forgiven. His words still stung, a reminder of how far she had come and how much further she was destined to go. The day of the campaign launch arrived, flooding Emma with a mix of nerves and excitement. The entire office gathered, glued to the screen as she showcased her hard work. As she detailed her thought process, murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. When it was done, applause erupted, enveloping her in warmth she hadn't anticipated. Mr. Harrison stood up to clap slowly, his expression unreadable. Approaching her, he extended a hand. "Well done," he said, his voice lacking its usual edge. Emma was unsure how to respond. Was it sincere praise or merely an attempt to erase past transgressions? Before she could figure it out, he added, "You've proven yourself. Keep it up." Then he turned and walked away, leaving her confused. Later that evening, as Emma wrapped up her work, she discovered a note under her keyboard. Its hurried handwriting simply read, "I owe you." No signature was needed. She recognized the sender. For a moment, she thought of confronting him, demanding an explanation. But as she held the note, a shift occurred within her. This was about her journey to reclaim her confidence and worth. Whatever Mr. Harrison felt was his responsibility, not hers. With firm resolve, she tucked the note into her bag and switched off the light. The city outside bustled, unaware of the battles fought within those walls. Stepping into the night, she realized she wasn't the same broken person who had walked out weeks ago. Stronger, smarter, and more determined than ever. She was ready to shape a future defined by her own dreams, not others' opinions. Yet, one question lingered. What would happen next? Would Mr. Harrison change? Or was this just empty words? The future would reveal the truth. But for now, Emma focused forward, confident she could face whatever came next. The days after the campaign launch zipped by in a whirlwind. The project gained attention beyond the company, earning praise from clients and industry peers. Emails flooded in, celebrating Emma's innovative ideas, and whispers of promotions began circulating. But amidst the triumph, conflicting emotions stirred within her. If she had proven herself, even to the man who once doubted her. Then one afternoon, she sat at her desk, reviewing feedback, when Mr. Harrison appeared beside her, softer than usual. "Got a minute?" he asked quietly. Surprised, Emma nodded, inviting him to sit. The silence between them was thick with unspoken words. Finally, he broke it. "I wanted to discuss what happened," he said, avoiding her gaze. Emma braced herself. She hadn't expected this conversation so soon. A part of her wanted to dismiss it, to remind him that some wounds don't heal with apologies. But another part, the part that still believed in growth, urged her to listen. "What about it?" she replied coolly. He winced but continued. "I was wrong," he admitted. "What I said wasn't professional or fair." Emma studied him, seeking any hint of insincerity. His expression was earnest, burdened with regret. So, she remained cautious. Words could be empty. "You humiliated me," she said quietly. "You made me question everything I thought about myself. Do you know how that feels?" Mr. Harrison flinched. "I do," he replied, "because I've experienced it." Emma blinked, surprised. He shared a vulnerable moment she never expected. "Before all this," he gestured around the office, "I worked for a boss who treated me the same way, belittled my ideas. I thought it was tough love that would make me stronger. Looking back, I see it damaged me." Emma listened, her skepticism fading as curiosity grew. "So why did you do the same to me?" she asked. He sighed heavily. "I thought being harsh would get results. Instead, I almost lost you." The sincerity in his confession hit Emma hard. It didn't erase the past, but it humanized him. She realized he was confronting his own faults, perhaps trying to break a cycle of toxicity. "Thank you for saying that," Emma replied, "but an apology doesn't change what happened. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight." "I understand," he said. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, just the chance to do better." Emma weighed his words against her struggles. Could she give him that chance? Did she want to? Before she responded, her phone buzzed with an email notification from the CEO about a promotion announcement. Her heart raced as she read the message, confirming she had been promoted to senior marketing strategist. Pride swelled within her, but it came with complications in her relationship with Mr. Harrison. "Well," he said, noticing her distraction. "What is it?" Emma turned the screen toward him, and surprise flickered across his face. "Congratulations," he said genuinely. For the first time, Emma allowed herself to believe him. The weeks following, shifts rippled through the office. Mr. Harrison softened, recognizing Emma's leadership, and competition was replaced with collaboration. While skepticism lingered among a few, others noticed the positive change. Emma embraced her new role with determination, leading projects with empathy and patience gained from her journey. She began mentoring junior staff, finding fulfillment beyond personal success. Yet, questions remained. Would Mr. Harrison genuinely change? Could Emma forgive him, or would his hurtful words echo forever? One evening, as she prepared to leave, Emma paused by the window, looking out over the shimmering city below. Each light represented a dream, and her own was unfolding, a story of resilience and growth. Suddenly, she heard footsteps approaching. It was Mr. Harrison, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, surprised by the gesture she received with a smile. As they stood in shared silence, Emma felt that while their road wouldn't always be easy, it held promise, the promise of healing and evolution. Mr. Harrison broke the stillness. "You've changed things for the better," he murmured. Emma nodded, meeting his gaze. "We both have." The next morning, Emma entered the office with renewed purpose, ready to tackle new challenges. The scars remained, but they no longer defined her. As she settled into her role, leading confidently, she understood one thing. She was no longer the woman who had crumbled under harsh words. She had risen stronger, and nothing could take that away. The city twinkled outside, and now her future shone just as bright.